The sound of laughter followed down the stone hallway of the academy. He kept his head down and walked faster, but the voices chased him like hungry wolves. "Look at him run," someone called out. "Too bad he cannot fly away." More laughter, always more laughter. Pushed through the heavy wooden doors and stepped outside into the cold mountain air. His chest hurt, but not from running. It hurt from shame. Today he had failed again. The trial of flame, the most basic test for any young dragon. Every child could breathe fire by age 5. Was 19 years old, and the best he could produce was a thin stream of gray smoke. He found his usual spot at the edge of the floating cliffs, where the rock dropped away into endless sky. 2 suns were setting in the distance, painting the crystal forests below in shades of orange and purple. It was beautiful here, peaceful, and most importantly, empty. Sat down and let his legs hang over the edge. His wings, copper-colored and actually quite pretty, folded against his back. They were useless too. While other dragons soared through the clouds, could barely lift himself above the treetops. His instructors had stopped trying to teach him years ago. But the worst failure was his memory. Every dragon of the people was born with a gift. They could reach into their minds and touch the memories of their ancestors. Thousands of years of knowledge passed down through blood and bone. History, battle techniques, ancient songs, family secrets. It was all there, waiting to be accessed. For everyone except. When he tried to reach for the memory, he found only darkness, silence, nothing. The Elder Council had examined him when he was just a baby. They had poked and prodded and tested him for days. Finally, they had announced their verdict to his mother. "Defective," they said. "A mistake of the bloodline, he will never be a true." His mother was a famous warrior. She had fought in 3 wars and earned more honors than anyone could count. When the elders called her son defective, she had roared with fury. She had sworn that they were wrong, that would prove himself. But years passed and nothing changed. Slowly the fire in his eyes dimmed. She stopped defending him. She stopped talking about his future. Now when she looked at him, saw something that hurt worse than any insult. Pity. He was the oldest student still attending the youth academy. Everyone his age had graduated long ago. They had jobs now, purposes. They were soldiers and scholars and builders. Was nothing. He sat in classes with children half his size, struggling with lessons they found easy. The instructors did not call on him anymore. Why bother? He never knew the answers anyway. "Interesting spot," a voice said from behind him. Jumped so hard he nearly fell off the cliff. He spun around, his heart pounding, and saw something he had never seen before in his life. It was small, smaller than any adult dragon. It had no wings, no scales, no tail. Its skin was soft and pink, and dark hair covered the top of its head. It wore a brown jacket with many pockets, all of them stuffed with strange tools and papers. But its eyes were what caught his attention. They were dark and round, without the vertical pupils that all proper creatures had, and they sparkled with something that looked like excitement. "You are human," said slowly. He remembered this species from his xenobiology class, one of the few subjects he had actually passed, from the planet Earth. "That is right," the creature said. It was female realized. Her voice was lighter than a dragon's but steady and confident. "My name is Dr. Park. I am an archaeologist. That means I study old things." She walked closer and sat down beside him at the edge of the cliff. She did not seem afraid of the long drop below, stared at her, confused. "Why are you here?" he asked. "How did you even find this place?" "I have been trying to talk to your people for 3 days," Dr. Park said. "Everyone keeps sending me to someone else. No one wants to answer my questions, so I started exploring on my own and I saw you sitting here." She smiled. "You looked lonely. I know what that feels like." Did not know what to say. No one ever wanted to talk to him, and certainly no one had ever said they understood his loneliness. "What questions do you have?" he asked. Dr. Park's eyes lit up. She pulled a small device from her pocket and pressed a button. Light shot out of it, forming a picture that floated in the air between them. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of stars and planets. "I study the architects," she said. "Have you heard of them?" Nodded slowly. Every child knew the old stories. The architects were a race of beings who had lived millions of years ago. They had traveled across the galaxy, creating life on empty worlds. Then they had disappeared, leaving behind only ruins and mysteries. "Most people think they are just myths," said. "Most people are wrong." Dr. Park zoomed in on the map, pointing to a dark region filled with collapsed stars and dangerous gravity wells. "The architects were real, and I believe your people are connected to them in ways no one has ever imagined." She turned to look at, and her eyes were burning with certainty. "I believe they were created by the architects, and I believe your memory holds secrets that could change everything we know about the universe." Laughed bitterly. "Then you came to the wrong dragon. I cannot access the memory. I cannot do anything. I am just a failure." Dr. Park studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, and it was not a smile of pity. It was something else entirely. "Maybe," she said softly, "or maybe you have been trying to open the wrong door." Dr. Park had been called crazy by many people. 3 universities had thrown her out. Her own colleagues had stopped returning her messages. Her family back on Earth thought she had lost her mind, but she did not care. She knew she was right. For the next several days, she met in secret at the floating cliffs. She brought food, which she shared with him. She brought star maps and ancient texts, and she brought her theory. "Your memory is not what you think it is," she explained one evening, as the twin suns sank below the horizon. "Everyone believes it is just ancestral recall, a way to remember what your grandparents and their grandparents knew. But I have spent 15 years studying architect ruins across 23 star systems. I have found something that nobody else has noticed." She pulled out her device and projected a new image. It showed a piece of carved stone covered in strange symbols. "This is from a ruin on a moon called 7, she said. "It took me 3 years to translate it. Do you know what it says?" Shook his head. "It talks about children of memory," Dr. Park said. "Beings created to hold knowledge that the architects could not write down. Living libraries, made of flesh and blood and fire. It says these children would carry the truth across 1,000,000 years, waiting for the day when someone would ask the right questions." She looked at with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "I believe that text is talking about your people." Was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Even if that is true," he said, "it does not explain me. The other can access their memory. They pass the tests. They remember battles and songs and craft techniques. I remember nothing." "Exactly." Dr. Park leaned forward. "What if that is the point? The memory trials your people use test for specific things, things that matter to the now. But what if the memory holds much more than that? What if there are deeper layers that no one has touched in thousands of years? Then why can the others not access those layers?" "Because they are too good at the shallow layers," Dr. Park smiled. "Think about it like a pool of water. Most people swim at the surface. They are strong swimmers and they never need to go deeper. They do not even know that deeper exists. But you cannot swim at the surface, you keep sinking." "That is not exactly a compliment." "It could be the greatest gift anyone has ever received." She grabbed his arm, her small human fingers surprisingly strong. "What if you are not defective? What if you were born to dive deeper than anyone has gone before? What if your failures are not failures at all, but signs that you were made for something different?" Wanted to believe her. He wanted it so badly that his chest ached. But 19 years of disappointment had taught him to be careful with hope. "What do you think is down there?" he asked quietly. "In these deep layers?" Dr. Park pointed to the dark region on her star map. "This is called the dead zone. Collapsed stars, black holes, gravity wells that can crush a ship like paper. No one has ever made it through. Every expedition has ended in death. I know this place. We are taught to stay far away from it. Because your elders are afraid. Dr. Park's eyes were shining. But I believe the architects hid something in there. Something so important that they protected it with the most dangerous barrier in the galaxy. Their true legacy. Their final gift. And I believe the only way to reach it is with a map that was drawn 1,000,000 years ago. You think the map is in my head? I think it might be. She squeezed his arm. But I cannot force you to look for it. You have to want to find it. You have to be willing to let go of everything you think you know about yourself. That night could not sleep. He lay on his sleeping mat and stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything Dr. Park had said. Part of him thought she was crazy, just like everyone else said. But another part, a small and quiet part that he had buried deep inside himself, whispered that maybe she was right. What did he have to lose? He had already failed every test. His people already thought he was worthless. If he tried what she suggested and failed again, nothing would change. He would still be the same broken dragon he had always been. But if he succeeded, closed his eyes. Usually when he tried to access the memory, he reached for specific things, the dates of famous battles, the names of ancient kings, the techniques of fire breathing, things the tests asked for. This time, he did not reach for anything specific. He simply opened himself up to whatever was there. The darkness behind his eyes seemed to shift. He felt like he was falling, slowly at first, then faster and faster. The familiar silence was still there, but now he realized it was not empty. It was full. So full that his mind could not process it all. It was like standing next to an ocean and suddenly understanding how deep the water went. Images began to flash through his mind. Not memories, something older, something so vast and strange that it made him dizzy. He saw stars being born. He saw planets shaped by giant hands of light. He saw creatures of pure energy, beautiful and terrible, looking down at him with something like love. And then he saw the map. Not a flat image, but a living thing. A pathway through the dead zone that twisted and turned with the gravity currents. It changed every moment, updated by some ancient power that had been running for 1,000,000 years. It was the key to everything. Screamed. He did not mean to. The sound tore out of him as his body convulsed on the sleeping mat. His eyes flew open and they were glowing. Pure white light poured from them, filling his small room. The door burst open. His mother stood there, her golden eyes wide with terror. "What is happening?" shouted. "What did you do?" He tried to answer, but the words came out wrong. Not words at all. Sounds that no throat should be able to make. Ancient sounds, the language of the architects. Then the light faded and collapsed. When he opened his eyes again, his mother was holding him. Her face was wet with tears. "I know where it is," whispered. "Mother, I know where everything is." And for the first time in 19 years, hope did not feel like a lie. Word spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. By morning, everyone had heard the story. The failed dragon, the strange human, the lights that had poured from his eyes in the middle of the night, the sounds he had made, words in a language that had not been spoken in 1,000,000 years. The elder council summoned them both. Walked into the grand chamber with his mother on one side and Dr. Park on the other. Guards had brought the human from her guest quarters. They had taken all her equipment and bound her hands with rope, treating her like a criminal. The grand chamber was the most sacred place in all of society. A massive room carved from living rock, with pillars that reached up into darkness. At the center stood the speaking stone, an ancient altar where only elders were permitted to channel the memory. 5 elders sat in tall chairs arranged in a half circle, their scales gray with age, their eyes hard with suspicion. Elder, the oldest and most powerful of them all, spoke first. "Bring the human forward." Guards pushed Dr. Park to the center of the room. She stumbled but did not fall. Her chin stayed high and her eyes showed no fear. "You have corrupted this young dragon," said. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "You have filled his head with lies and false hope. Whatever trick you used to make his eyes glow, we will discover it, and you will be punished." "It was not a trick," Dr. Park said calmly, "and I did not corrupt anyone. I simply asked questions that your people stopped asking a long time ago." Silence. Another elder, a female named, rose from her chair. "The architects are myths, children's stories. To claim that we are connected to them is an insult to our entire civilization." "Is it?" Dr. Park asked. "Or is it the answer to questions you have been too afraid to ask? Your memory is incredible. No other species in the galaxy has anything like it. Have you never wondered where it came from? Have you never asked why you were given such a gift?" The elders looked at each other, could see the doubt in their eyes just for a moment before they covered it with anger. "Enough," said. "We did not come here to debate with an outsider. We came to examine this boy and determine what madness has taken hold of him." He turned his cold gaze to. "Come forward, child. Show us this great discovery you claim to have made." His legs felt weak, but he forced himself to walk to the center of the chamber. He had stood in this room once before, when he was just a baby. That was when the elders had declared him defective. Now he stood here again, and the weight of that memory pressed down on his shoulders. But something had changed. For the first time in his life, knew something that the elders did not. He had seen things that no dragon had seen in thousands of years. The fear was still there, but underneath it, he felt something new. Certainty. "What I found is not madness," he said. His voice did not shake. "Our memory is more than ancestral recall. It is a database created by the architects 1,000,000 years ago. They made us to remember what they could not stay to protect." "Lies," Elder hissed. "Then let me show you," pointed to the speaking stone. "Let me channel the deep memory through the stone. If I am lying, you will see nothing, but if I am telling the truth—" "You dare?" Rose to his feet, his old body trembling with rage. "The speaking stone is sacred. Only elders may touch it. You, of all people, a failure who cannot even light a candle with your breath, you think you are worthy." "I think worth is not about breathing fire," said quietly. "I think worth is about what you can give to others, and I have something to give." He walked toward the speaking stone. Guards moved to stop him, but his mother stepped into their path. "Let him try," said. Her voice was steady but could see the fear in her eyes. Fear and hope mixed together. "What is the harm? If he fails, he fails. That is nothing new, but if he succeeds, then we all need to see it." The elders looked at each other, finally nodded. "Very well. Let the failure prove himself a failure one more time. Perhaps this will finally end his delusions." Placed his hand on the speaking stone. The rock was cold at first. Then it began to warm. He closed his eyes and reached down, down, down into the depths of his mind, past the shallow waters where the others swam, past the darkness that had always stopped him before, down into the place he had found last night. The map was waiting for him, and so was everything else. Light exploded from the speaking stone. It filled the grand chamber so bright that even the elders had to shield their eyes. But it was not just light. It was knowledge, pure information flowing directly into the minds of everyone present. They saw what had seen. The birth of stars, the creation of worlds, the architects themselves, beings of energy and light looking down at their children with love. They saw the truth of what they really were. When the light faded, the chamber was silent. Elder had fallen from her chair, was leaning against a pillar, his ancient face wet with tears. The guards had dropped their weapons and stood frozen in shock. Dr. Park looked at with wonder in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. "You actually did it." "There is more," said. He was tired, so tired, but he could not stop now. "The architects left something behind, A repository of all their knowledge hidden in the dead zone. I have the map. I know how to get there. The dead zone is impassable, said Weekly. Every ship that has entered has been destroyed. Because they did not have the map. The path changes with the gravity currents. It is different every hour of every day, but the architects built the map into our memory. They wanted us to find our way back. Was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, painfully, the most powerful elder of the people lowered himself to his knees. He bowed his head too. Forgive us, he said. We called you defective. We were wrong. Tell us what you need and it will be yours. Looked at Dr. Park. She nodded. We need a ship, said. The best ship you have, and a crew willing to risk everything. The path through the dead zone will only be open for a short time. Then we must move quickly, said. The future of our people depends on it. For the first time in 19 years smiled. Not a small, careful smile, a real one. The failure was about to prove everyone wrong. The ship was called the Eternal Flame. It was old, built during the Great Wars that had ended 100 years ago, but it was strong. Its hull was made of metal, the toughest material known to the... Its engines could push it faster than most modern ships, and its crew was the best that could be found on short notice. Captain was a veteran who had flown through asteroid fields and survived battles that killed everyone else around him. He had not believed Story at first. He had called it nonsense, the dreams of a broken child and a crazy human. Then he had experienced the memory transfer in the Grand Chamber. Now he stood at the front of the ship, looking out at the stars, and his hands were shaking slightly. I have seen things I cannot explain, he told as they prepared for launch. Things that make everything I thought I knew seem small. If there is even a chance that what you showed us is real, then this journey is worth any risk. The crew was small, 12 warriors, chosen for their courage and skill. Dr. Park and her assistant, a young human male named who had followed her from Earth against the advice of everyone who loved him, and who still could not believe any of this was happening. His mother had wanted to come, had refused. If I do not return, he told her before boarding the ship, someone needs to stay here who understands the deep memory. Now that I have opened the door, others might be able to follow, teach them, guide them, help our people become what they were always meant to be. Had embraced him then, not the careful, distant hug she had given him for so many years. A real embrace, tight and fierce and full of love. I never stopped believing in you, she whispered in his ear. Even when I could not show it, I always knew you were special. I just did not know how. Now, standing at the navigation console of the Eternal Flame, thought about those words. They gave him strength. The pathway opens in 2 hours, he announced to the bridge crew. We will have 40 minutes to navigate through the dead zone before the gravity currents shift. If we are not through by then, we will be crushed. 40 minutes to cross the most dangerous region in the galaxy, said dryly. No pressure at all. I will guide us, said. The map is alive in my mind. I can feel the path like it is part of my own body. Trust me. Looked at him for a long moment, then he nodded. I never thought I would put my life in the hands of someone who cannot breathe fire, the captain said. But here we are. Let us make history. The first hour of the journey was smooth. The Eternal Flame flew through normal space, past familiar stars and planets that had studied in his classes. Then the stars began to thin, and darkness grew ahead of them. The dead zone. Even from a distance, it looked wrong. The space here was twisted, bent by forces too powerful to imagine. Collapsed stars spun in deadly dances with black holes. Rivers of debris flowed between gravitational wells, moving at speeds that could tear any ship apart in seconds. Approaching the entry point, the pilot announced, waiting for navigation instructions. Closed his eyes and reached into the deep memory. The map bloomed in his mind, beautiful and terrifying. He could see the safe path, a thin thread of possibility winding through the chaos. It shifted constantly, never staying still for more than a few seconds. "Turn 15 degrees starboard," he said. "Then dive at a 20-degree angle, speed, maximum thrust." "Maximum thrust," the pilot looked at. "Captain, if we hit anything at that speed." "Do as he says," ordered. The ship turned, the engines roared, and they entered the dead zone. What followed was the most terrifying 40 minutes of life. The ship shook constantly as gravitational waves washed over it. Through the viewports, they watched debris fields spin past, missing them by distances too small to measure. Dead ships floated in the chaos, the remains of expeditions that had tried to cross and failed. Saw the symbol of the military on one of them. Someone had tried this before and never come home. Hard port now. The ship rolled. A stream of rocks that had once been a planet shot past them, so close that could see individual boulders. Climb 30 degrees, full power. They shot upward just as a gravity well opened beneath them. Felt the pull, felt the ship groaning as it fought to escape. For a horrible moment he thought they would fail. Then the engine screamed and they broke free. 15 minutes remaining, Dr. Park called out. Her voice was steady but her face was pale. How much further? Checked the map in his mind. They were past the worst of it. The path ahead was calmer, but they could not slow down, not yet. 10 more minutes of navigation, he said. Then we should be through. Those 10 minutes felt like hours. Called out instructions constantly, his voice growing hoarse. The crew worked together like a single organism, responding to his commands without question. Trust. They trusted him completely. He would not let them down. There, Dr. Park shouted, "Look!" Through the viewport, beyond the last of the gravitational chaos, a new region of space appeared. Clean stars shone in the darkness. Normal space. Safe space. And floating in the center of it, glowing with soft golden light, was the largest structure any of them had ever seen. It was a sphere, but that word did not do it justice. It was bigger than planets, bigger than some star systems. Its surface was covered in patterns that moved and shifted, like writing that was constantly rewriting itself. Docking ports large enough to swallow entire fleets dotted its surface. By the ancient flames breathed, "What is that?" "The repository," said. He felt tears running down his face, but he did not wipe them away. The sum total of everything the architects knew, everything they were. They left it here for us to find. "It is still active," whispered. "After 1,000,000 years it is still running, waiting." The ship drifted toward the nearest docking port. As they approached, lights activated around them, guiding them inside. The structure welcomed them like a parent welcoming children who had been lost for far too long. And then a voice spoke in their minds. Not human, but somehow understood by everyone. "Welcome, children. We have waited so long for you to come home." Closed his eyes and let the tears flow. They had made it. The repository was not just a building, it was alive. Not alive like a dragon or a human, alive in a different way. It thought, it felt, it remembered. The architects had poured their minds into this structure before they left the galaxy. Their knowledge, their hopes, their dreams, their love for all the children they had created across the stars. Walked through corridors of pure light. The walls were not solid. They were made of energy that shifted and flowed around him like gentle water. Dr. Park walked beside him, her eyes wide with wonder. Behind them came and the crew, silent and amazed. The voice of the repository spoke in their minds as they walked. "You are the first to return. We hoped it would be you were always our most faithful children." "Why us?" asked aloud. His voice echoed strangely in the glowing corridors. "Because we made you to remember. The other species we created were built to grow and change and become new things. Humans, for example. We gave them curiosity and stubbornness and the inability to accept what they are told. They question everything. They break rules and build new ones. They are our wild children and we love them for it. Dr. Park smiled at that. But you, the repository continued. You were different. We made you to be our archive, our promise that nothing would ever be truly lost. The memory we placed inside your people is not just ancestral recall. It is a living library stretching back to the very beginning of our work. Then why could we not access it before? Asked. Why did it take so long for someone to find the deep layers? Because REMBRING is easy. Finding is hard. Your people created tests to measure memory, but those tests only measured recall. The ability to repeat what you have been told. That is not the same as discovery. That is not the same as asking questions no one else thinks to ask. The repository paused, and when it spoke again, its voice was gentler. You failed every test they gave you, TAEHO, because you were not built for their tests. You were built for something they had forgotten existed. The ability to dive deeper than anyone else. The ability to find what was lost. They entered a vast chamber at the heart of the structure. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into glowing mist. In the center of the room, a pillar of light stretched from floor to ceiling, pulsing like a heartbeat. This is the core, the repository said. Here is everything we were, everything we knew, everything we hoped for the children we left behind. The pillar showed them wonders, star maps of the entire galaxy, drawn 1,000,000 years ago and updated in real time. Technical knowledge that made current science look like children playing with blocks, cures for diseases that had killed billions, designs for ships that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years, the secrets of life and death and everything in between. This is incredible, Dr. Park whispered. With this knowledge we could change everything, end suffering, cure death, make the entire galaxy a paradise. Yes, the repository agreed. You could. But before you decide, we must tell you something important. The light dimmed slightly, and the voice grew serious. We left you two paths. The first path is to take everything we have, use IT, share it, give every species in the galaxy the knowledge to become like us. Suffering would end within a generation. Death would become a choice. The stars would be yours. And the second path? Asked. The second path is to take only what you need to find your way here. Leave the rest for later. Let each species earn this knowledge for themselves, one discovery at a time. Growth cannot be given. It can only be achieved. Silence filled the chamber, looked at his companions, was staring at the pillar with hunger in his eyes. Some of the warriors were whispering to each other, was crying softly. Dr. Park stepped forward. I have studied architect ruins for 15 years, she said. I have seen what happened to species that were given too much too fast. They did not grow. They became dependent on gifts they did not understand. They stopped striving, stopped dreaming, stopped becoming better. The knowledge hollowed them out instead of lifting them up. But think of the suffering we could end, protested. The diseases, the wars, the pain. We can still end those things, Dr. Park said gently. Just not all at once. Not by handing out miracles. We have to earn it, step by step, discovery by discovery. That is what makes the journey meaningful. She looked at. But this is not my choice to make. It is yours. Felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. His whole life, he had been told he was worthless, a failure, someone who could not do what everyone else could do. And now, standing at the center of the greatest discovery in history, he was being asked to decide the future of the entire galaxy. He closed his eyes and reached into the deep memory one more time. He searched for guidance, for answers, for some sign of what the architects wanted him to do. What he found was simpler than he expected. Love. The architects had loved their children, all of them. Every species they had created, every world they had seeded with life. They had not left because they did not care. They had left because they wanted their children to grow up, to make their own choices, to become something new. Giving them everything would have been easy, but it would not have been love. Opened his eyes. "We take the second path," he said. "We take the knowledge to find our way back here. We share the location with every species in the galaxy, and we let each of them make their own journey and their own choice." The repository was silent for a long moment. "That is what we hoped you would say," it said finally. "The first path was a test. We would have honored your choice if you had taken it. But the second path means you understood. Growth is not given. It is earned. And the earning is what makes precious." Light surrounded them, warm and golden, carrying something that felt like pride and love, and the bittersweet joy of parents watching their children finally leave home. "Go now, children, build your roads, ask your questions. And when you are ready, when all of you are ready, we will be here, waiting." 6 months later, stood before the combined councils of 12 species, human, and 10 others who had sent representatives to hear what the expedition had found. He told them everything: the repository, the choice, the path forward. "The architects left us a message," he said at the end. "They said, you will fall, you will fail, you will be mocked and told that you are nothing. And then, when you have stopped trying to be what others expect, you will discover what you actually are." He looked out at the assembly. "I failed every test my people gave me. I was called defective, broken, worthless. But those tests were measuring the wrong things, and I think maybe the same is true for all of us. We have been so busy trying to pass tests that others created that we forgot to ask our own questions." He smiled. "The repository is waiting. The knowledge is there for anyone brave enough to seek it, but we have to earn it, step by step, failure by failure. That is the gift the architects gave us, not the answers, the chance to find them ourselves." The assembly was silent. Then, from the human delegation, Dr. Park began to clap. One by one, others joined her. Soon the hall thundered with applause. Across the chamber, caught his mother's eye. Was weeping and smiling at the same time, looking at her son like she was seeing him for the first time. Smiled back. He had spent his whole life believing he was a failure. Now he understood that failure was just another word for asking different questions, and different questions led to different answers. The answers that changed everything.